Hello and welcome. Find a place of comfort and let the busy world recede. Tonight, we journey back in time to the heart of the Renaissance, to the city of Florence in the late 15th century. It is a world humming with new ideas, artistic ambition, and the patronage of powerful families. But we are not here to visit the courts of princes or to debate philosophy with great minds. Our journey is a much humbler one. We are here to enter the world of the bottega, the artist's workshop, and not just any workshop. We are about to become the youngest apprentice in the studio of the master of masters, Leonardo da Vinci. This is not a story of brilliant invention or the creation of famous masterpieces. Your life as a young garzon, an apprentice, is not one of glory. It is a life of quiet observation, of endless repetition, and of humble, dedicated labor. Your world is the smell of linseed oil and wood dust, the rhythmic sound of a grinding stone, and the patient, silent study of the master's work. Through your eyes, we will experience the slow, methodical, and often mundane reality of how the great art of the Renaissance was made. You will learn the secrets of pigments, the craft of preparing a panel, and the discipline of a single perfect brushstroke. This is your life now, a quiet and patient journey in the shadow of a genius. Let us begin on your very first morning. The first light of dawn has not yet touched the Arno. The great city of Florence is a world of deep blue shadows and silence, broken only by the distant chime of a monastery bell. But here, in the heart of the workshop, your day has already begun. You awaken on a simple straw mattress in a small windowless back room that you share with two other boys. The air is cold, and you dress quickly in your simple woolen tunic and hose. There is no time for lingering. Your first duty is the most fundamental, the one given to every new boy who enters the bottega. You are the keeper of the floor. You take the heavy, bristled broom, its handle worn smooth by the hands of the apprentices who came before you, and you begin your work. The main studio is a vast, high-ceilinged room, still steeped in the darkness of the night. The only light is the single flickering candle you have carried with you. Its small, warm glow throws long, dancing shadows from the strange and wonderful objects that fill the space. An easel holding a large, half-finished painting, its figures like sleeping ghosts under a thin cloth. Plaster casts of ancient Roman statues, a hand, a foot, a serene face, watching you silently from their shelves. The faint, complex smell of the workshop fills your senses, the sharp, nutty scent of linseed oil, the earthy aroma of raw clay, the sweet perfume of drying poplar wood, and the lingering, dusty scent of charcoal. You begin in a corner and work your way across the vast stone floor. The motion is slow, steady, and rhythmic. Sweep, sweep, sweep. Your broom gathers the debris from the previous day's work. Small, curled shavings of wood, dried lumps of gesso, discarded charcoal sticks, and the fine, colored dust of the pigments that has settled on everything. This is not a glorious task. It is a humble act of purification. You are not yet here to create, but to cleanse, to prepare the space for the great work of others. As you sweep, the city outside begins to awaken. You hear the first distant sounds of cartwheels on the cobblestones, the call of a baker from his shop down the street. The pale, gray light of dawn begins to filter through the high north-facing windows of the studio, slowly revealing the room in its full, majestic detail. You see the great workbenches, the shelves of tools, and in the center of it all, the desk of the man you are here to serve, El Maestro, the master, Leonardo. You finish your sweeping, gathering the dust into a small pile and carefully disposing of it. The floor is now clean. The space is prepared. Your first duty is complete. You have brought order to the world in which art will be born. Your next duty takes you to what seems like a sacred place in the workshop, the pigment shelf. It is a long, sturdy wooden shelf lined with dozens of small, earthenware pots and cloth sacks. To an outsider, it is a collection of dust and rocks. To you, it is a library of color, a catalog of the Earth's hidden beauty, and you must learn to read it. A senior apprentice, perhaps a boy only a few years older than you, but with the authority of a veteran, begins your first lesson. He points to each pot, and you must learn its name, its origin, and its character. This is not a quick lesson. It is a slow sensory exploration that will take you many weeks to master. He shows you the earth's first, the humble foundations of the palette. He takes a pinch of a deep, reddish-brown powder. This is raw sienna, an earth dug from the hills outside the city of Siena. He lets you feel its fine, slightly gritty texture. Next to it, a pot of yellow ochre, a warm, golden earth that smells of clay and sun. These are the colors of the ground, of flesh, of the warm, foundational tones of the world. Then he moves to the minerals, the jewels of the palette. He points to a heavy stone pot containing a powder of an impossibly deep and brilliant blue. This, he whispers, is ultramarine. It is made from the lapis lazuli stone, brought by merchants all the way from the distant mountains of Afghanistan. It is more expensive than gold. You are not yet allowed to touch it. It is the color of the Virgin Mary's robe, the color of heaven. He shows you cinnabar, a heavy reddish mineral that, when ground, produces the brilliant red known as vermilion. He warns you of its poisonous nature. He shows you malachite, a green banded stone that yields a soft, cool green. An orpiment, a brilliant, lemon-yellow crystal, beautiful but dangerous, a poison derived from arsenic. You learn that color is not just a matter of beauty, but of chemistry and of caution. You learn of the colors made from plants, the deep, rich red of the madder root, the golden yellow of weld, the fugitive purples made from lichens. You learn which colors are stable and permanent, and which are liable to fade in the light. Your task for now is simply to know them, to be able to fetch the correct pot when called. You spend hours opening the sacks and jars, smelling the different earthy and chemical scents, looking at the subtle variations in hue, and committing their names and properties to your memory. You are learning the alphabet of painting, the raw, earthly materials from which the master will conjure his luminous and transcendent worlds. Once you have learned the names and natures of the pigments, your real laborious work begins. For the next year, perhaps two, your primary duty in the workshop will be this. You are a grinder of colors. You are brought to a thick, heavy slab of porphyry stone, its surface perfectly flat and smooth. Beside it rests a muller, a pestle-like stone with a flat bottom and a rounded top that fits perfectly in your hand. This is your new world. A senior apprentice shows you the process. He takes a small spoonful of a raw pigment, perhaps the green, earth known as terre, and places it in the center of the slab. He adds a small pool of pale golden, viscous linseed oil. Then he places the muller on top and begins to grind. The motion is not one of brute force. It is a slow, steady, and continuous circular motion. Scrape, scrape, scrape. A dry, gritty, sandy sound fills the air. He leans his body into the work, his weight pressing the muller down as he moves it in a wide, hypnotic circle. He tells you that the goal is to ensure that every single tiny crystalline particle of the pigment is completely coated in the oil. This is what creates a smooth, buttery, and permanent paint. To grind too little is to create a gritty, weak color. To grind too much, or too hard, is to bruise the color, to break down the crystals and dull their brilliance. Now, it is your turn. You take the muller. It is heavier than it looks. You begin to grind. The work is awkward at first, your circles uneven. But day after day, week after week, your body learns the rhythm. Your shoulders and back ache, but you learn to use your weight, not just your arm strength. The hours are long. Your entire morning might be dedicated to preparing a single pot of one color for the master or the senior apprentices. The work is a meditation. Your mind empties and your world shrinks to the circle of the muller, the changing texture of the paint and the slow scraping sound. you learn the personality of each pigment. The lapis lazuli is hard and gritty, taking many hours to subdue. The soft, earthy ochres are quicker, yielding a smooth paste with less effort. The lead white is heavy and slick. You are not yet an artist. You are a human machine, a transformer of raw materials. You take the dry, dusty, lifeless grit from the earth and, through your own slow, patient, and repetitive labor, you transform it into a luminous, living paste. You are creating the very substance of beauty. Without your quiet, monotonous, and essential work, the brushes of the master would be useless. The workshop could not function. You are the foundation upon which the masterpieces are built. After months spent in the humble world of dust and pigments, your duties in the bottega begin to evolve. You are now entrusted with the first steps in creating the very foundation upon which a masterpiece will be built, the preparation of the wooden panel. The master Leonardo prefers to paint on wood, a stable and luminous surface if it is prepared with the utmost care. This is a craft in itself, a slow and patient process that smells of the forest and the workshop. Your journey begins not in the studio, but in the carpenter's section of the workshop, or perhaps with a visit to a wood merchant in the bustling streets of Florence. You learn to identify the best wood for a panel painting, poplar. You run your hands over the planks, feeling for the smoothest grain, checking for knots or imperfections. You learn to appreciate the pale, creamy color and the light, clean scent of the seasoned wood. Back in the workshop, under the guidance of a senior apprentice, you learn the art of the panel maker. If the painting is to be large, several planks of poplar must be joined together. You watch as the edges are planed perfectly flat, a task requiring a strong arm and a precise eye. Then comes the glue. It is not a liquid from a bottle, but a substance you must create. You learn to take scraps of animal hide and simmer them for hours in a pot over a low fire, creating a strong, hot, and pungent-smelling glue. This hot glue is applied to the edges of the planks, which are then pressed together and held fast in heavy wooden clamps. You learn to wipe away the excess glue that is squeezed from the seam, your fingers sticky with the stuff. The panel is then left for days to dry, the glue creating a bond that is stronger than the wood itself. Now comes the most meditative and physically demanding part of the process. The surface of the panel, though smooth to a carpenter, is not yet smooth enough for a painter. It must be prepared to receive the paint. This is the art of applying gesso. You are taught how to make it. You take the same animal hide glue and mix it with fine, powdered gypsum or chalk, creating a thick, white, plaster-like substance. This is the gesso grosso, the rough gesso, which is applied first to the raw wood to fill the grain and create a foundational layer. But the true art lies in the gesso sotto, the fine gesso. This is a much smoother, more refined mixture, and it is this that will become the final painting surface. You are given a wide, soft, bristled brush, and you begin the slow, rhythmic work of applying the gesso to the panel, layer after thin layer. The first is applied in horizontal strokes. You must wait for it to dry completely. The next is applied in vertical strokes. You wait again. You apply as many as 8 or even 10 of these thin, alternating layers, slowly building up a substantial, stable, and perfectly white ground. When the final layer is dry, the work is still not done. The surface, though white, is slightly rough from the brush strokes. You are given a piece of fine charcoal and a cloth. You learn to rub the charcoal over the surface and then polish it away, the fine black dust revealing the high and low spots. You then take scrapers and fine abrasive cloths and begin the final laborious process of polishing. For hours, you rub the surface in gentle circular motions until every last imperfection is gone. The final result is a thing of quiet, luminous beauty. The wooden panel is now a perfect, flawless, bone-white surface, as smooth and cool to the touch as polished ivory. It is a blank slate, a silent world waiting for the master's vision. You have not painted a single line, but you have prepared the ground. You have created the luminous foundation from which all the color and light of the final painting will emerge. Having mastered the humble arts of the floor and the grinding stone, and having learned the patient craft of preparing the panels, you are now deemed ready for your first true lessons in the art of disegno of drawing. But you are not handed a soft piece of charcoal that can be easily smudged and erased. The master believes that an apprentice's hand and eye must be trained in discipline and consequence. Your first tool is the silver point. A senior apprentice presents you with the instrument. It is a simple wooden stylus, a holder like a pen, but its tip has been fitted with a small, sharp point of pure silver. He then gives you your drawing surface. It is not plain paper. It is a sheet of fine paper that has been carefully prepared, coated with a thin, liquid ground made from finely ground bone ash and glue, tinted to a pale, creamy pink or a light gray-green. He demonstrates the technique. He takes the silver stylus and draws a simple line on the prepared paper. The mark it leaves is not black or gray, but a faint, delicate, and shimmering line of a pale, warm silver gray. The line is beautiful, subtle, and absolutely permanent. There is no erasing a silver point line. Every mark you make is a final commitment. This is the lesson. You must learn to see, to think, and to be certain before your hand ever touches the paper. Your first task is not to draw from your imagination. It is to copy. The workshop is filled with the master's drawings, studies of every conceivable thing. He is a firm believer in learning by observing and replicating the work of others before attempting your own. You are given one of his studies to copy, perhaps a detailed drawing of the intricate folds of a piece of drapery, or a series of sketches of a human hand in different positions. You place your prepared paper beside the master's drawing. You take up the silver point stylus. It feels light but potent in your hand. You study the master's work, your eyes tracing the flow of a single, long, confident line that describes the curve of a knuckle or the deep shadow of a fold. You take a slow breath. You place the silver tip on your paper and you begin to draw. The work is intensely focused. The pressure must be just right, too light, and the line is almost invisible. Too hard, and you risk tearing the delicate surface of the paper. You learn to build up the darker areas, the shadows, not by pressing harder, but through the patient, methodical process of cross-hatching, the laying down of a web of fine parallel lines, one over the other, to create a sense of depth and form. Your world shrinks to the space of a few inches. The master's drawing and your own pale, hesitant imitation. Your hand trembles at first. The permanence of every mark is a heavy responsibility, but as the hours and days pass, your hand grows steadier. Your eye learns to see more clearly, to understand the logic of the light and shadow before you. You are not just copying a drawing. You are learning a new way of seeing, a way of thinking. You learn that a single, well-placed line can convey more than 100 hesitant scratches. You learn the discipline of looking before you act. You learn the profound and quiet satisfaction of creating a form, a shadow, a sense of life, with nothing but a series of delicate, shimmering, and irreversible silver lines. The workshop has received a major commission, perhaps an altarpiece for a wealthy church, or a portrait for a noble family. The master, after many small preparatory sketches, is now ready to create the final master drawing that will guide the entire painting process. This drawing, done at the exact, full scale of the final painting, is called the cartoon, and you, as a junior apprentice, will play a small but vital role in its use. First, you watch in awe as the master creates the cartoon itself. Several large, heavy sheets of paper are glued together to create a surface as large as the wooden panel on which the final work will be painted. On this, the master and his senior assistants draw the entire composition in charcoal and chalk. It is a true masterpiece in its own right. Every figure, every fold of drapery, every architectural detail rendered with a powerful and confident hand. This is the definitive blueprint for the painting. Once the cartoon is complete, the great and delicate work of transferring it to the perfectly prepared bone-white gesso panel begins. The master's drawing is too precious to be damaged, so it must be transferred with care. You are called upon to help with the primary method for this, a technique known as pouncing. The large paper cartoon is laid out on a long, flat table. You and the other junior apprentices are each given a simple tool, a needle set and a wooden handle. Your task is slow, meticulous, and requires the utmost care. You must kneel or lean over the drawing and, following the master's charcoal lines precisely, you must prick a series of tiny, closely spaced holes through the paper with your needle. The work is a form of meditative manual tracing. For hours, you follow the graceful curve of a saint's robe, the outline of a hand, the contour of a face, leaving a perforated trail in your wake. The only sound is the soft, repetitive pricking of the needles into the heavy paper. You must be careful not to prick too far apart, or the transferred line will be broken. You must not prick too close together, or the paper will tear. It is a lesson in precision and patience. When the entire drawing has been perforated in this way, the next stage begins. The great pricked cartoon is carefully lifted and positioned perfectly over the white gesso panel. It is held firmly in place so that it cannot slip. You are now handed a different tool, a small, porous muslin bag tied at the top. It is filled with a fine black powder of ground charcoal. This is called a spolvero, from the Italian word for dust. Your task is to take this bag and gently dab, or pounce, at along the lines of tiny holes you have just created. With each soft tap of the bag, a small, dusty puff of charcoal powder is pushed through the perforations in the paper and onto the white gesso surface below. You work your way across the entire composition, dabbing methodically until every single line has been treated. Then comes the moment of revelation. With great care, 2 senior apprentices lift the paper cartoon away from the panel, and there, on the flawless white gesso surface, a perfect, ghostly, and delicate dot-to-dot outline of the master's entire composition remains. It is a faint, spectral image, but it is precise. The master's grand vision has now been successfully transferred from the world of paper to the world of the panel. The foundation is laid, the blueprint is in place. The stage is now set for the painters to begin their work of bringing this faint charcoal ghost to full and vibrant life. The world of the workshop is not a solitary one. Though your tasks are often performed in quiet focus, you are a part of a small, hierarchical, and almost monastic community. You are a garzone, one of the boys at the bottom of the ladder, but above you are the other apprentices and assistants, each moving through their own stage of the long journey toward mastery. There are boys your own age, your companions in the humble work of sweeping and grinding. You share a silent understanding, a camaraderie born of shared labor and aching shoulders. You learn from each other in quiet moments, a quicker way to wash a pot, a better method for preparing a chalk ground. Above you are the senior apprentices, the discepoli. These are young men in their late teens or early 20s. They have served their time at the grinding slab and have earned the right to draw and to paint. You watch them with a mixture of envy and reverence. You observe how a senior apprentice, like Giovanni or Marco, holds his brush, the confident and economical movement of his hand. You see the intense concentration on his face as he lays in the underpainting for a minor section of the master's work. They rarely speak to you directly, for the hierarchy is strict, but every action they take is a silent lesson. You learn by watching their discipline, their successes, and their quiet frustrations when a brushstroke goes awry. And at the top of this pyramid, just below the master himself, are the assistants or assistenti. These are skilled painters in their own right, men who have completed their apprenticeships but choose to remain in the master's orbit. They are entrusted with significant portions of the workshop's commissions, painting the architectural backgrounds, the robes of minor figures, the landscapes that stretch behind a portrait. Their presence lends the workshop its great productivity and its consistent style. This community is bound together by the shared rhythm of the work and by the simple, communal rituals of the day. The midday meal is a brief respite. A long, rough wooden trestle table is set up in a back room. The meal is not lavish. It is the food of craftsmen, a loaf of dark, crusty bread, a wedge of sharp pecorino cheese, a handful of olives, and cheap, red wine heavily watered down. The conversation during the meal is quiet and subdued. There's little idle chatter. The talk is of the work, the quality of a batch of pigments, the difficulty of a particular passage of painting, a new commission rumored to have been received by the workshop. The master, if he joins the meal, eats little, often lost in his own thoughts, sketching on a scrap of paper between bites. This shared meal is not about friendship in the modern sense. It is the quiet, functional gathering of a guild, a team of artisans bound by a single, all-consuming purpose. After the work is done, you return to your shared sleeping quarters. The exhaustion is deep and profound. There is little energy for conversation. The relationships here are forged not in words, but in the shared, silent understanding of the craft. It is a brotherhood of dust, of oil, of pigment, and of a deep, collective, an unspoken reverence for the quiet, enigmatic man who moves among you, the master whose vision you all serve. One afternoon, the master is called away, summoned to a meeting with a wealthy patron across the city. He leaves in a hurry, and a rare and trusted task falls to you. A senior apprentice, with a stern look of warning, instructs you to tidy the master's private desk. You are not to touch the papers, merely to organize the pots of ink, wipe away the charcoal dust, and bring a semblance of order to the creative chaos. You approach the desk with a feeling of profound reverence and nervous curiosity. This is the very heart of the workshop, the place where the master's incredible visions are first given form. It is a world unto itself. There are strange and wonderful objects scattered across its surface. A bird's wing, perfectly preserved, lies next to a series of polished lenses and mirrors. A small, intricate wooden model of a geared machine sits beside a human skull, which the master uses for his anatomical studies. And then you see them, the notebooks. They are simple, leather-bound volumes of the sort you had seen merchants use for their accounts. But you know that what is inside is a different kind of accounting altogether. One of them is lying open. You know you should not look. Your instructions were clear. But the temptation is too great. For a single, breathless moment, you lean closer. The first thing you notice is the script. It is a strange, spidery, and beautiful handwriting that you cannot easily read. You realize, with a jolt of wonder, that it is written backwards, from right to left. It is the master's famous mirror script, a secret personal language. But the drawings need no translation. They are a window into a mind that seems to contain the entire universe. On this single, open page, you see things that take your breath away. In the top corner, a detailed, scientific study of the turbulence of water, showing how it curls and eddies around a rock in a stream. The lines of flow captured with a swirling, hypnotic energy. Beside it, an intricate diagram of a machine with great, flapping wings, a design for a flying machine, with notes on the mechanics of bird flight. In the lower corner, there is a grotesque, comical face, a caricature of an old man with a nutcracker jaw and a warty nose, a study in human ugliness that is as keenly observed as his beautiful Madonnas. And next to that, a complex geometric diagram, a study in the squaring of the circle, its lines and arcs drawn with perfect mathematical precision. You feel a sense of profound vertigo. The other painters, you know, they study painting. They draw, they mix colors, they paint. But the master studies everything. The flow of water, the flight of birds, the anatomy of a face, the laws of mathematics. You realize that for him, there are no boundaries between art and science, between beauty and mechanics. It is all one great, single, all-consuming quest for knowledge. A sound from the outer workshop breaks the spell. Terrified of being discovered, you quickly and respectfully close the notebook. You finish your simple task of tidying the desk, your hands trembling slightly. You have not touched his secrets, but you have felt the heat of his mind. You return to your own humble work of grinding pigments with a new and unsettling understanding. You are not just an apprentice in a painter's workshop. You are a small, quiet servant in the laboratory of a man who is attempting to understand the very machinery of creation. The master's relentless quest for knowledge sometimes leads him, and you out of the familiar, dusty world of the workshop and into other, more secret and more challenging environments. One evening, a senior assistant tells you to bring a hooded lantern and follow him. You are not told where you are going. You walk through the dark, winding streets of the city to a place of quiet and somber purpose, the hospital of Santa Maria Nuova. You are led not to the wards of the sick, but down a set of stone steps into a cold subterranean chamber, a cellar or a mortuary. The air is cold and carries a sharp, strange, chemical scent of preservatives. In the center of the room, on a simple wooden table, lies a human form, covered by a heavy linen sheet. The master, Leonardo, is already there, along with one or two of his most senior assistants. He is not dressed as a painter, but as a scholar, a physician. His expression is one of supreme, detached, and intense concentration. Your role is a simple one. You are to stand where you are told, and you are to hold the lantern high and steady, to provide a constant, unwavering light for the master's work. You are to be silent. You are to be still. The master nods, and an assistant pulls back the sheet. You try not to look too closely at the face of the deceased, a poor, unclaimed soul from the hospital. Your focus is on the master. He takes up his tools. They are not the tools of a painter, but of a surgeon. Fine, sharp scalpels, probes, and forceps. What follows is not an act of brutality, but one of the most focused and scientific procedures you will ever witness. With a hand that is as steady and precise as when it holds a silver-point stylus, the master begins his dissection. He works with a quiet, methodical reverence. He is not interested in the cause of death, but in the cause of life. He is an explorer, and this is his new world. His low, calm voice fills the silence of the cold room. He is not speaking to you, but to his assistants and to himself, dictating his observations. He remarks on the way a muscle of the shoulder connects to the bone, its fibers twisting like rope. He traces the path of a nerve down an arm, a fine silvery thread of communication. He is utterly absorbed, a man mapping a secret and hidden country. Periodically, he will pause his physical work. He will wipe his hands and take up one of his notebooks and a piece of charcoal or a pen. And by the light of the lantern you are holding, he will begin to draw. You watch, mesmerized, as his hand moves with incredible speed and certainty. He is not just drawing what he sees. He is drawing what he understands. He draws the layers of a leg, showing the bone, then layering on top the muscles, the tendons, and finally the skin. He draws a human hand, not just its surface, but the intricate, beautiful machinery of the bones and ligaments within. The quiet, dry scratch of his pen on the paper is the only sound in the room. He is peeling back the veil of the surface world to understand the hidden engineering of the human form. You stand perfectly still, your arm aching from holding the lantern. You feel a mixture of fear, of unease, and of a profound and overwhelming awe. You understand now, in a way you never could have before, the secret to the master's art. His figures are so lifelike, so full of weight and presence, because he does not just paint what the eye sees, he paints what he knows. He has journeyed into the very architecture of flesh and bone, and it is from this deep, secret, and hard-won knowledge that his breathtaking art is born. You leave the cold room that night with a new and solemn understanding of the price of truth and the endless, unyielding depth of the master's mind. Years have passed. The city of Florence has moved through its cycles of festivals and quiet work, and you have moved through your own cycles of apprenticeship. The broom feels like an extension of your arm, the grinding muller a familiar weight in your palm. You can now prepare a gesso panel so smooth it feels like polished marble. Your hand is steady with the silver point, your eye trained from copying the master's drawings 100 times. And now a new chapter begins. One morning, a senior assistant, a man whose skill you have long admired from a distance, approaches you. He observes your latest silver point study of drapery, gives a single slow nod, and says, "El Maestro says you are ready. Today, you will learn to build the shadows." A current of fear and elation passes through you. This is the moment you have been working towards. You are finally being given a brush. You will be allowed to touch a real painting. You are not, of course, brought to the master's great unfinished altarpiece. You are led to a smaller panel, a commission being worked on by the senior assistants. It is a portrait of a merchant's wife. The charcoal outline from the Pounce cartoon is already visible on the pristine, white gesso surface. Your task, you are told, is not to paint the woman, but to begin the underpainting for the simple, architectural background, perhaps a stone archway behind her. You are taught the method of the workshop. Before any color is applied, the entire painting must first be rendered in monochrome. This is the underpainting, a complete and detailed map of light and shadow that will serve as the foundation for all the luminous color to come. In the master's studio, this is often done in a grayish-green tone called verdaccio, or a neutral brownish-gray known as grisaille. You are given your own small palette, and you mix the simple tones yourself. A bit of black pigment, some white, and the green earth terra verde. You mix a dark tone for the deepest shadows, a light tone for the illuminated areas, and several shades in between. You take your place before the panel, a soft bristled brush in your hand. It feels strange, alive, and full of a terrifying potential that the simple stylist never had. Your task is to paint the stone archway. You begin, as you were taught, with the shadows. With a steady hand, you lay in the darkest areas, the deep recess where the arch meets a wall, the shadow cast by the subject's shoulder. The paint is thin and slightly transparent. You are not just coloring in a shape. You are building a form out of darkness. Then you move to the lighter areas. You apply the pale, grayish-green tones where the light would strike the stone. The very brightest highlights are not painted at all. You learn to use a clean, soft cloth to gently wipe away the wet paint, revealing the brilliant, pure white of the gesso ground underneath. This technique makes the highlights seem as though they are truly emanating light from within the panel itself. For hours, this is your entire world. You are not a painter of things. You are a painter of light. You are a sculptor carving form out of a flat, white surface using only shades of a single quiet color. Your mind is focused on one thing and one thing only: how the light falls, how the shadows turn, how a flat arch can be given the illusion of depth and solid, stony weight. It is a profound and difficult lesson. It teaches you that color is a final, beautiful luxury, but that form, light, and shadow are the true, fundamental architecture of a painting. You are learning the master's great secret, that a painting must first be a perfect world of black and white before it can become a living world of color. You have learned to build the world in shadow. Now you must learn how the master fills that world with light. As you progress in your training, you are allowed to stand and watch the senior assistants and the master himself as they begin the slow, magical process of applying color. And you learn that color is not what it seems. It is not a simple, opaque skin laid upon the surface. It is a thing of light, of depth, and of transparency. You are learning the art of the glaze. You watch as a senior assistant prepares his palette. He is going to paint a rich crimson velvet robe, but he does not mix a simple flat red. Instead, he begins to work on top of the monochrome underpainting, which has been left to dry for many weeks until it is hard as stone. The folds and shadows of the robe are already perfectly rendered in shades of gray. He takes a tiny amount of a rich red pigment made from the madder root and mixes it not with an opaque white, but with a generous amount of clear, golden linseed oil and perhaps a touch of varnish. The resulting paint is not a thick paste. It is a thin, translucent, jewel-like liquid. This is a glaze. With a soft bristled brush, he applies a thin, even layer of this transparent red over the gray underpainting. The effect is magical. The underpainting is still completely visible beneath the glaze, but its gray tones are now infused with a deep, rich, crimson hue. The darkest grays of the underpainting become deep, velvety, wine-red shadows. The lightest whites of the gesso, left bare for the highlights, now glow with the color of a pale pink rose. A single, thin layer of transparent color has transformed the monochrome form into a luminous, three-dimensional reality. But the work is not finished. It has barely begun. This single, thin layer of glaze must now be left to dry completely. This can take days, sometimes weeks. Rushing the process is the greatest sin of the workshop. To paint a new layer over a glaze that is not fully cured is to create a muddy, cracked, and ruined surface. And so you learn the profound patience of this technique. The deep, luminous, and breathtakingly realistic colors of the master's paintings are not the result of a single, brilliant application of paint. They are the result of accumulation. A second, a third, a tenth, sometimes as many as 30 thin, transparent layers of glaze are applied, one over the other over a period of many months. Each new layer subtly deepens and enriches the color. A thin glaze of blue over a dry glaze of red creates a purple of impossible depth and vibrancy. A thin glaze of yellow over blue creates a green that seems to be lit from within. The light from the room does not simply reflect off the surface of the painting. It penetrates through the many layers of transparent color, strikes the brilliant white gesso ground at the very bottom, and reflects back out, making the colors seem to glow with their own inner light. You watch this slow, patient, and scientific process, and you understand. You understand why the work takes so long. You understand that the master is not merely a painter. He is a master of optics, a student of the physics of light. He has created a method of painting that is not about covering a surface, but about trapping light itself within a thin, beautiful, and multi-layered web of transparent color. The day has finally come. You have proven your skill in underpainting. You have watched and understood the slow, patient art of the glaze. The master has been observing your progress, his silent gaze a constant source of nervous motivation. And now, you are to be given your first true task, your first contribution of color to a painting by the great Leonardo. An assistant leads you to a large panel, a depiction of the Madonna and Child. The great central figures, the faces and hands, are already completed by the master's own hand, their flesh tones impossibly smooth and lifelike. The underpainting is complete on the rest of the work. The assistant points to a small, relatively simple area of the painting, a single deep fold in the blue drapery of the Madonna's robe, near the bottom of the panel. This small, shadowed valley of fabric, no larger than your hand, will be your world. The pressure you feel is immense. The fear of making a mistake, of ruining a small part of the master's work, is almost paralyzing, but the years of discipline take over. You begin the ritual of preparation. You go to the pigment shelf and take down the pot of precious, impossibly expensive ultramarine blue. You carry it back to your station as if it were a sacred relic. You take a small amount of the brilliant blue powder and begin to grind it on your slab, not with the hurried, mechanical rhythm of your first years, but with a new, slow, and reverent care. You mix it with the clear, golden linseed oil, working the muller until the paint is perfectly smooth, a paste of pure celestial blue. On your small wooden palette, you mix your tones. You mix the pure ultramarine with a touch of black for the deepest part of the shadow. You mix it with a tiny amount of lead white for the lighter, sun-facing edge of the fold. You arrange your tones in a neat, logical progression. You take your place before the great panel. You select a fine, soft-bristled brush. You take a slow, deep breath to steady your trembling hand. You dip your brush into the darkest of your blue mixtures, and you touch it to the panel. You begin, as you were taught, in the deepest part of the shadow, laying in a smooth, even tone of dark indigo blue. Then you take your mid-tone and paint the areas that are turning away from the shadow. Now comes the most delicate part. With a clean brush, or even just the tip of your finger, you begin to gently blend the edge where the dark and the mid-tone meet. You soften the transition, creating a smooth, smoky graduation of color, the master's famous sfumato technique. There are no hard lines, only a soft, believable turning of form. Finally, you take your lightest blue and, with a single confident stroke, you lay in the highlight on the upper ridge of the fold, where the light would just catch the fabric. You have finished. You step back. It is a tiny, insignificant part of a vast and magnificent painting, but it is yours. You have successfully created a small, convincing illusion of three-dimensional form and color. You have painted a shadow that has depth, a highlight that has light. You are so absorbed in your work that you do not notice the master himself has approached. He stands behind you, his hands clasped behind his back, and looks at your work. The silence is absolute. He looks at the fold you have just painted for what feels like a lifetime. You feel his gaze, a weight of immense judgment and knowledge. He does not speak. He does not praise you. But after a long, silent moment, he gives a single, small, almost imperceptible nod of his head. And then he walks on. That single, silent gesture is the greatest praise you have ever received. In that moment, you know that your years of sweeping, of grinding, of drawing, of patient, silent work have been worthwhile. You are no longer just a boy who cleans the workshop. You are a painter in the studio of Leonardo da Vinci. Most days in the workshop are governed by the internal rhythms of craft. The scraping of the muller, the planing of wood, the quiet scratch of a silver point stylus. But on some afternoons, a different energy enters the space, an energy from the world of wealth and power that funds this entire enterprise. A patron arrives. His visit is preceded by a quiet but urgent instruction from the senior apprentice. All junior boys are to make themselves busy and, above all, silent. You must become part of the furniture, a ghost in your own workspace. Your task is to be present but invisible, to continue a simple task in a far corner, your head bowed. The great door to the studio opens and two men enter. One is the master, his demeanor calm and respectful, but with the unmistakable air of an equal. The other is the visitor, perhaps an emissary from the court of the Duke of Milan, Ludovico Sforza, or a representative of a wealthy Florentine banking family. The contrast is immediate. The visitor is dressed in impossibly fine velvets and silks, the deep crimson of his doublet a splash of arrogant color in the dusty, earth-toned world of the workshop. His hands are soft, adorned with a heavy gold ring. The air in the studio immediately changes. The easy, quiet hum of work is replaced by a tense, formal silence, broken only by the low murmur of the two men's voices. You retreat to your corner, pretending to be absorbed in the task of tidying a shelf of pigment pots, but your eyes and ears are focused on the scene unfolding in the center of the room. The master leads the patron to the great easel, where the painting he has been commissioned to inspect is displayed in the best possible light. A thin veil might be lifted from its surface with a quiet theatrical flourish. You do not hear all the words. The conversation is a low, polite dance of Italian. but you observe the language of the encounter. The master does not act like a humble tradesman seeking approval. He is a man of quiet, confident authority. He speaks of his work not in terms of beauty alone, but in terms of science, of optics, of the philosophy of his composition. He might use his long, elegant fingers to trace the flow of a figure's gesture, to explain how the mathematical perfection of the perspective draws the eye to a specific point, or to describe the allegorical meaning of a certain flower placed in the corner. He is not just selling a painting. He is teaching a way of seeing. The patron listens intently, his head cocked to one side. He might step back, squinting his eyes to judge the overall effect from a distance. He might then step forward, peering closely, perhaps too closely, at a small detail, the rendering of a jewel on a sleeve, the lifelike expression of a secondary figure. This is not just a pleasant visit. It is an inspection, a negotiation. The reputation of the workshop, a future stream of commissions, and a great sum of money all hang in the balance of this quiet conversation. As an apprentice, you learn a new and vital lesson. Art is not created in a vacuum. It is a business, an intricate dance between the artist's singular vision and the patron's desires, wealth, and ego. You see how the master, for all his otherworldly genius, must navigate this terrestrial world with immense diplomacy and tact. After what feels like an eternity, the visit concludes. The patron seems pleased. A bag of coins, its weight making a soft, heavy clinking sound, might be placed discreetly on a table. There are formal, respectful bows. The master escorts the man to the door. When he is gone and the great door is closed, a collective, silent sigh of relief seems to pass through the workshop. The formal tension dissolves. A senior apprentice might crack a small, rare smile, and the quiet, familiar, and deeply comforting hum of creative work slowly resumes. You have witnessed the delicate intersection of art and commerce, a quiet and vital drama that unfolds behind the serene faces of the painted saints and angels. The day's light begins to fail. The long, north-facing windows of the studio, which have provided a cool, steady, and shadowless light for the painters all day, now begin to admit the soft, gray-blue shadows of the Florentine desk. A senior apprentice gives a quiet signal, a simple nod of the head. The day's painting is done. For the master and the senior painters, who have been standing for hours in deep concentration, their work is over. But for you, the junior apprentice, one of the most important and trusted rituals of the day is about to begin. You are tasked with cleaning the master's brushes. This is a duty of immense responsibility. The brushes are precious, expensive tools, the direct extension of the master's hand and mind. Some are made from the stiff, strong bristles of hogs, perfect for broader strokes. Others, the most valuable, are made from the impossibly fine and soft tail hairs of a weasel or a squirrel, capable of creating a line as fine as a single human hair. To damage them through haste or carelessness would be a serious offense. You approach the master's workstation with a quiet reverence. He has left his used brushes resting in a shallow earthenware pot filled with dark, fragrant linseed oil. This keeps the paint from drying and hardening in the delicate bristles. You take the pot to your own small cleaning station, a stone slab near the water basin. You lay out a series of clean, soft linen rags. You take the first brush from the oil. It is heavy with a deep, rich, umber-brown paint. You gently squeeze the dark, paint-filled oil from the bristles between your thumb and forefinger. Then, you begin to wipe the brush on the first rag. The motion is always the same, a lesson drilled into you from your first week. You pull the brush gently across the cloth, following the direction of the bristles from the ferrule to the tip. You never push against them, for that would cause them to splay and break. A thick smear of umber appears on the clean cloth. You dip the brush back into a pot of cleaner oil and wipe it again on a fresh section of the rag. You repeat this process over and over. Dip, wipe, The work is a slow, quiet meditation. The only sound is the soft friction of the bristles on the cloth. The smell of the linseed oil is rich and clean. Slowly, patiently, the color begins to fade from the brush. The smears on the cloth become paler and paler, a ghostly record of the day's work, until finally, the brush leaves only a clean, faint trace of pure golden oil. Now comes the final cleansing. You take a small piece of simple soap, and in the palm of your hand, you work up a gentle lather with some cool water. You then swirl the bristles of the brush in the lather, working it all the way down to the base. This removes the last of the oil. You rinse the brush in a basin of clean, cool water until the water runs perfectly clear. The last step is the most important. With your own fingers, you carefully and gently reshape the wet bristles, bringing them back to their original, perfect form of sharp, fine point or a clean, flat chisel edge. The brush must not be left to dry in a ragged or splayed shape. It must be perfect, ready for the master's hand in the morning. You lay the cleaned and shaped brush down on a clean, dry cloth and move on to the next one and the next. For a long time, this is your entire world. The colors of the day's masterpiece are slowly, patiently washed away into the humble rags, leaving the tools purer and ready once more. In this simple, repetitive, and deeply respectful act, you are serving not just the master, but the art itself. You are the quiet custodian of the instruments of creation. The last brush is cleaned and laid to dry. The workshop is now in deep shadow, lit only by a single lamp left burning low, its flame a lonely star in the vast, quiet room. The other apprentices have finished their final tasks and have retired to their quarters. Your long day, which began in the darkness before the dawn, is finally at its end. You walk from the main studio through the back rooms to your own small sleeping space. You are weary. Your back aches from sweeping, your shoulders and arms from the long hours of grinding the pigments, your mind from the intense concentration of your lessons. You remove your simple, work-stained tunic and lie down on your straw mattress. The sounds of the workshop, the scraping of the muller, the tapping of the carpenter's hammer, the low murmur of the painters are gone. They are replaced by the new soundscape of the Florentine night. Through the high open window of a nearby room, you can hear the distant, lonely cry of the city watchman calling out the late hour, his voice echoing in the narrow stone streets. You can hear the deep, resonant chime of a great church bell from the Duomo, a sound that has marked the passing of your entire day. You might hear the faint, melodious sound of a lute being played in a wealthy house down the street, a sad, sweet tune that drifts on the cool night air. The smells have changed too. The sharp, professional scent of linseed oil and pigments is replaced by the cool, damp smell of the night air coming off the river Arno. It carries a hint of wood smoke from a baker's oven being prepared for the morning's bread, and the faint green scent of the cypress trees in a hidden garden. You lie in the darkness, and the images of the day drift through your mind, a quiet and vivid procession. The brilliant, impossible blue of the ultramarine powder, the perfect, graceful curve of a line in the master's drawing of a hand. The wave of light caught the deep folds of a piece of silk drapery. The silent, approving nod from the master. You do not think of them as lessons. They are simply there, a quiet catalogue of the day's accumulated beauty, a series of images being filed away in the great library of your memory. Your body is heavy. Your mind is full. You have spent your day in the service of a great genius, performing the humble, essential tasks that make his art possible. You are a tiny but vital cog in a magnificent machine of creation. You close your eyes. The sounds of the sleeping city become a gentle, soothing lullaby. Your breathing deepens, and you fall into the deep, dreamless sleep of the tired and the purposeful, ready to rise before the dawn and do it all again. Your life as an apprentice has truly begun.